Joining us now, Oscar-winning filmmaker Michael Moore. His brand new one-man show on Broadway, The Terms of My Surrender, is currently in previews and officially opens on August 10th. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me. They put me on. They knew not to have me come on at the beginning.
Not too early.
Yeah, you
No
said you're
worries.
working out sort of body clock issues right now with your Broadway debut.
Yeah, well, we just had the first weekend, so it's 8 shows a week.
Oh my goodness!
But
That's a lot.
Yeah, it is. It's quite a workout for someone whose normal workout is, opening up the next bag of chips.
Oh,
So-
that's good.
So what are people going to see when they come to The Terms of My Surrender?
Well, they're going to. It's a piece of theater that I've written. It is a one-man show, but there are some surprises,
Right.
and so I have a number of stories to tell, a number of ways to. I try to answer the question, how the heck did this happen, and how do we prevent it from happening again, and in ways that normally aren't being discussed on television.
You were warning Democrats
A few sneak
before
peeks.
that Donald Trump could win this election.
Yeah, no, I went further.
You actually said he was going to win it.
Yeah, last summer.
Yeah.
But I live in Michigan, though.
Right.
Right.
So, I live.
What do you warn? How do you warn against something that you saw coming?
Well, obviously, I need better communication skills because I didn't succeed in convincing either fellow liberals or Democrats that the tsunami was coming. And I could not convince people connected to the Clinton campaign to please come to Michigan and Wisconsin. And now it's kind of like, I have a thing in my show where there's like a 12-step program that Democrats need to be in right now to sort of make sure this doesn't happen again, because we've won the popular vote in 6 of the last 7 presidential elections. All right, and yet we sit here this morning with no power, nothing. They have everything. Democrats control 6 of the 50 state capitals.
So what?
6.
So tell me, what happened to the Democratic? Because we can obviously look at Donald Trump's election, but as we say all the time on the show, Democrats have lost 1,000 state legislative seats. They've lost all these governorships.
Yeah.
What's happened to the Democratic Party? How did they get disconnected? And do you see anything coming out of Washington, D.C. from Democrats that's going to reverse that trend?
A better deal?
Well, part of this is that the Democrats aren't really disconnected because Hillary Clinton got the majority of Americans to vote for her. There were another 7.5 million that voted Green or Libertarian. So that's 10.5 million Americans who said they didn't want Donald Trump as president.
In that race, right.
Yes. But I guess the other side knew that there's this thing called the Electoral College. And nothing's really changing there in terms of, he seems to hold his support no matter, excuse me, what he does.
Right.
So
why is that? Why are there still people in Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Ohio that are still supporting Donald Trump when clearly 6 months in he's overmatched for the job?
Because I don't think the Democrats have yet to offer what the alternative is. And as we sit here today, I mean, you see, even for, people, we're going to take the House back. And it's like, really? Well, where are all those great candidates for next year? Right. I mean, I think people, especially people who watch this show, who are wired into politics and what's going on, Democrats, liberals need to think about running next year, or get people in your legislative districts or your state Senate districts to run. Find a beloved American in your district and run that person who can win. And I've said this to you before, we have to start running people who can win and people who are beloved by the American people and who understand how to talk to the American people. And that's not a knock on Hillary Clinton. It's not just her. It's like I said, it's 6 out of the last 7 that we've won the popular vote. So the American public is liberal on the issues, right? The majority of Americans believe women should be paid the same as men, are pro-choice. They believe that there's climate change. Go down the whole list. Americans on the they won't call themselves liberals, but on the issues they're liberal. So why do we hold no power?
So Nick, I'll let you take it next, but just a better deal is their slogan. I think I weren't sure if you connected.
No, I heard that. Yeah.
Okay, so that's their slogan. Obviously, it doesn't really connect.
But it is
much.
3 words. We're down to 3 words now.
To 3
Lock
words.
her up.
That's good.
Crooked Hillary. I guess that's 2
deal.
words. Make it sound
but and you say we got to run candidates who can win. They tried to run a candidate in Georgia. You can't run a candidate. A candidate needs to step up. It needs to be within him or her.
Yes.
It needs to be the person that is the leader that steps up and people follow. And I just feel like they're trying to create constructs instead of discover
correct.
talent.
That is so true. And there have been studies to show that when Democrats try to sound like Republicans, locally especially, when they move to the middle or to the right, they lose. When they actually run as Democrats and run on the liberal issues that the majority of Americans agree with, they win. But there's something about Democrats, they just feel, oh, the only way we can win, we have to appeal to those Trump voters or whatever.
Right.
Well, who we have to appeal to there are 8 million Obama voters that voted for Trump. We can win some of those back. Remember, I come from a state where Hillary lost by 2 votes per precinct. That's all she lost by, those 10,000 votes.
Right.
We can do this. We can get those people back. But it has to be a real concerted effort. And people cannot in Michigan and Wisconsin be waiting around for the Democratic Party in Washington they're not going to ride in on the white horse and save them.
Nick.
Wait, so if okay, so you said earlier that this is actually a left country, a progressive country. So if America is a progressive country, how are Democrats shut out at every level of government? They control nothing, as you said.
Right.
How can it's not really possible in terms of basic retail politics. If the country agrees with you, you can't get elected.
Exactly.
How is it possible?
Again, I think it comes down to running the right people. Now, California is the experiment right now. So there's a state where Democrats control both houses, the governor's seat, and things are getting done. Good things are getting done. But that's only happening in 6 states. So this is as a real effort. It's anybody watching this.
What's the disconnect, Michael?
The disconnect.
What's the disconnect? Why are Democrats losing so badly everywhere?
Because they don't have the right people running. That's it. That's it. People watching this show right now who are Democrats or who lean that way or whatever need to think about running next year. And even for local offices, school board, I mean, this is how the right did this. They did it the right way. I have such, as I said to you before, respect and admiration for the other side because they get the right people running locally, and then they have the courage of their convictions to stick to what they believe in, and they are up at 2 in the morning last week, still trying to pass something that only 17% of the American people were in support of. Right. You've got to admire the tenacity of that.
Right off the cliff. So, Josh, what do the Democrats do?
Yeah. Well, what Democrats clearly have to do is we have to figure out how to communicate better. Because I do think that what Michael is illustrating is that so much of what we have done to try to advance this country is generally supported, not by everybody, and not certainly on every single detail, but in terms of fighting for the values, whether it's making sure that everybody has health care, recognizing that the United States has to play a leadership role in the world in responding to a bunch of challenges, including climate change, making sure that we have a financial system that isn't rigged against people. These are the kinds of values that are unifying for Democrats, but what's confounding about this is that the difference for Trump, and what was the difference for his success, and the difference in flipping some of these counties that had gone for Obama and gone for Trump, is that these are the people who are most directly affected by these issues, and Donald Trump is working against.
Well, Steve, that's always been sort of, Democrats have always asked the question, what's the matter with Kansas?
Yeah. So we go back to a remarkable video that you produced where you explicate why Trump is going to win to voters. And you begin, you say, you know, people in Michigan, right, they're not racist, right, they're good people. And you go through that. As a Michigan guy who comes to New York, right, who's on the West Coast, the Democrats, do they have a problem do they have an elitism problem, a cultural condescension problem that is immunizing these voters in states like Michigan and Wisconsin from hearing them on some of these issues? What's the difference when you come to Manhattan between a Manhattan progressive and a Michigan progressive?
That's so funny. I was thinking about that the other day because when I lived between these two places back and forth, when I first came here, this was a state that had a Republican governor, a Republican mayor. It was the home of Rush Limbaugh. That's where his radio show came out of WABC, right? I mean, this from New York being such a liberal place, I come from a place that gave us the middle class, where unions and other things happened to raise the standard of living for everyone. And those people are still there and struggling, but they've been left behind. And please understand, they don't love Donald Trump. There's no, the way that people might have loved Reagan or whatever. They don't love Trump. They're angry. Trump was their Molotov cocktail to throw into a system that had not been there for them.
Ruth.
We need candidates that will be there for them.
Ruth Marcus.
So I totally agree, Michael, with your diagnosis that Democrats need to run the right people. But I'm kind of questioning and want to push you a little bit on whether the best people, the right people, are kind of coming at them from the left. When Democrats retook the House under the leadership of Rahm Emanuel, he ran people who were the right people for those districts, which were much more conservative than the kinds of candidates you're talking about. So why is he wrong and you're right?
Well, but you're talking about 2006. We're talking about 2018 now. We live, every year there's 3 million more 18-year-olds that become eligible to vote. So we're a much younger country now, and the youth of this country don't believe in the old ways. They wanted Bernie Sanders. The last poll I just saw, that more of them support socialism than capitalism. I mean, these are the people that are going to determine the future. And I would reach out to a coalition of young people, women, and people of color, and not be afraid to be real liberals, real Democrats. Yes, in some of these purple districts, you might have to run people that are a little more conservative, but you shouldn't lose Michigan. You shouldn't lose Wisconsin, and I don't think we have to.
Michael Moore, it's always great to have you on the show. Thank you so much, and take a look right there. The Terms of My Surrender is currently in previews at the Belasco Theater on Broadway. Great to have you. Thank you so much.
Singing, dancing.
Yes.
That does it for us this morning.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.